Are you doing all the healthy things, eating vegetables, drinking bone broth, supplementing collagen, but still finding your strength slipping, your muscles shrinking, your energy fading? What if I told you that bone broth, despite all the hype, is not the solution to preventing muscle loss, sarcopenia, but there is a food and a metabolic framework that builds muscle more reliably and sustainably? Here's what's really going on inside your body as we age or under metabolic stress, we lose muscle mass and function faster than we build it. That's sarcopenia. It is a core driver of frailty, metabolic decline, insulin resistance, increased fat gain, and shorter health span. Muscle is not just about aesthetics or strength. Your skeletal muscle is your largest insulin-sensitive tissue. It helps buffer glucose, regulate metabolism, and supports mitochondrial health. Lose muscle, and your body becomes more insulin resistant, more inflamed, and more vulnerable to metabolic disease. Bone broth has become a darling of wellness marketing, promised to heal your gut, boost collagen, or restore your body. But what is the actual evidence? As one credible nutrition source notes, bone broth often provides low levels of minerals and its collagen content is highly variable and unreliable. The nutrition source, even worse, it may carry heavy metals if bones are sourced poorly. The nutrition source, in other words, bone broth, is comforting and it may contribute a little, but it's not a muscle-building panacea. So if bone broth is overrated, what should we be focusing on? The root cause lies in stimulating muscle protein synthesis, MPS, overcoming anabolic resistance, and optimizing the metabolic milieu in which muscle adapts. What the research shows is that high-quality protein, resistance exercise, and metabolic context, insulin, inflammation, liver health, hormonal balance, are the pillars for building and preserving muscle, especially after age 30. Biomed Central plus 4MDPI. In this talk, I will share with you 6 science-backed insights that shift the focus from bone broth myths to the real drivers of muscle preservation and growth. We will walk through why muscle matters far beyond strength, its role in metabolic health and longevity, the problem of anabolic resistance and how aging changes the protein threshold, which proteins and amino acids truly drive muscle gains, and why leucine, not collagen, is king. The timing, distribution, and context of protein intake: when, how much, and how often. The metabolic environment, controlling insulin, inflammation, cortisol, and liver health to enable anabolic growth. A practical, doable protocol, combining diet, resistance training, and lifestyle tweaks for everyday life. By the end, you will see why I say, forget bone broth, here's the food and the framework that builds real muscle and kills sarcopenia. And you'll have a step-by-step doable protocol you can begin today. If this resonates so far, consider subscribing. I post content like this every day, deeply rooted in physiology and practicality. Let's begin. Imagine your muscles as a giant sponge for glucose. After a meal, when your blood sugar rises, your pancreas releases insulin. The signal from insulin tells glucose to leave the bloodstream and enter insulin-sensitive tissues, with skeletal muscle being the largest such tissue in your body. In fact, skeletal muscle is responsible for over 80% of insulin-stimulated glucose disposal after a meal, PM. In simpler terms, most of the sugar in your blood gets mopped up by your muscles. If your muscle mass or function declines, that sponge shrinks. Less glucose is taken up, insulin has to work harder, and blood sugar control begins to slip. That's one major pathway toward insulin resistance and metabolic dysfunction. There is compelling evidence that sarcopenia, loss of muscle, and insulin resistance are bidirectionally linked. Loss of muscle worsens insulin sensitivity, and insulin resistance further impairs muscle health, creating a vicious science direct. Muscle is an endocrine organ, not just meat on the bone. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Muscle isn't just a factory that stores protein. It's also a communication hub. When muscles contract, they release signaling molecules called myokines. These send messages to other organs, fat tissue, liver, pancreas, brain. Myokines can regulate inflammation, insulin sensitivity, fat mobilization, and even brain health. That means healthy muscle helps coordinate the body's metabolism. When muscle deteriorates, that dialogue breaks down. One result, systemic inflammation rises, metabolic coordination weakens, and organ crosstalk becomes dysfunctional. This is one reason why sarcopenia is strongly associated with frailty, metabolic syndrome, and chronic disease. Science Direct Pros2 Biomed Central. Baseline muscle protein balance, synthesis versus breakdown. Muscle mass is never static. It's a constant balance between muscle protein synthesis, MPS, and muscle protein breakdown, MPB. Net gain requires MPS, MPB. As we age, three things generally happen. Resting basal muscle protein synthesis slows down. Biomed Central Plus. Muscle protein breakdown is modestly elevated. Biomed Central. The response to feeding, i.e., how strongly MPS rises after you eat protein, becomes blunted. This is anabolic resistance, which we'll cover in depth later. Biomed Central. So the sponge is smaller, less muscle, and its ability to soak up building signals, amino acids, insulin is weaker. Secondary consequences: insulin resistance, fat gain, and mitochondrial decline. Because muscle is central to glucose uptake, when you lose muscle or its function, your body leans more on fat tissue and the liver to manage excess glucose. Over time, this contributes to hyperinsulinemia, fat accumulation, and metabolic syndrome. Additionally, aging muscle often develops mitochondrial dysfunction, intramuscular fat infiltration, oxidative stress, and low-grade inflammation. Science Direct. For Biomed Central, for Science Direct. These defects further sabotage how muscle responds to insulin and nutrients, closing the door on any chance of regrowth unless we actively intervene. Whiteboard analogy. Let me draw a mental whiteboard. On the left, imagine a large sponge muscle soaking water, glucose. On the right, a smaller worn sponge. The larger sponge soaks more, the smaller one lets more water spill. Now add leak holes, damaged mitochondria, inflammation, insulin resistance. Even the sponge that remains starts leaking signals, glucose pooling in blood, inflammation rising, hormones misfiring. Your goal is to restore sponge size, increase muscle mass, pause quality, and repair its integrity. Mitochondria, signaling metabolism, that's how you reclaim metabolic health. What you should do today, because this is section 1, allow me to offer a small, immediate takeaway. Focus first on maintaining or regaining lean mass as a metabolic priority, not a side goal. Start with resistance exercise, even body weight or light weights, to reawaken the muscle sponge. Pay attention to your protein intake in each meal to deliver the building blocks for synthesis. We'll dive into precise guidelines soon. These ideas are resonating and clarifying your view of muscle. Consider subscribing. I post content like this daily, always rooted in physiology and clear solutions. That's the core of why muscle is not optional. It's essential to metabolic health, insulin control, and longevity. Here's what's really going on inside your body when you hit your 30s, 40s, or beyond. Your muscles stop listening. They stop responding to the same foods, the same workouts, even the same protein you used to eat. You're doing everything right, yet you're losing tone, energy, and strength. This is called anabolic resistance, and it's the hidden driver of sarcopenia, the volume knob analogy. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine that when you were 25, your muscle's volume knob for growth was set at full sensitivity. You eat a meal with 20 grams of protein, the signal goes up to maximum, and your body says, great, let's build. Fast forward 20 years. That same meal with 20 grams of protein barely moves the dial. Your muscle cells hear the signal faintly and respond weakly. It's not that you can't build muscle. It's that your cells require a louder signal to wake up. That is anabolic resistance. The muscles decrease sensitivity to the anabolic signals of amino acids, insulin, and mechanical tension. What causes it? Researchers have identified several converging causes. Reduced muscle blood flow. Older muscle tissue receives less nutrient delivery after meals, reducing amino acid uptake. PubMed.NCBI.NLM. Mitochondrial dysfunction. Aging muscle accumulates, oxidative stress and mitochondrial inefficiency, blunting energy production needed for synthesis. low-grade inflammation. Cytokines such as TNF-alpha and IL-6 interfere with mTOR signaling, the main pathway for muscle growth. Hormonal shifts. Lower testosterone, estrogen, and growth hormone reduce anabolic drive. Sedentary behavior. Simply not using the muscle regularly makes it resistant to both protein and insulin. The result is that the same meal and same exercise now yield less benefit. The leucine threshold. So what's the fix? You have to hit the anabolic threshold, the point where enough of the key amino acid leucine is present in the blood to flip on the mTOR switch. What the research shows is that you need roughly 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine per meal to robustly stimulate muscle protein synthesis. That equates to about 30-40 grams of high-quality protein from sources like eggs, especially the whites, whey protein isolate or concentrate, chicken, turkey, fish, beef, tofu, and tempeh for plant-based eaters, but larger portions are needed. In contrast, bone broth or collagen contain almost no leucine, which is why metabologically they can't overcome anabolic resistance. Nutrition and metabolism. This is the scientific reason bone broth doesn't build muscle. It soothes your gut and provides glycine, but it doesn't activate mTOR, the master switch of muscle synthesis. Timing matters. Here's something most people miss. It's not just what you eat, it's when and how often you trigger that anabolic signal. Every time you eat a meal with sufficient protein and leucine, you get about a 3-hour window of elevated muscle protein synthesis. After that, the signal fades and your body resets to baseline. If you graze all day on small snacks with low protein, you never hit the threshold. You live in a subanabolic zone, always feeding, never growing. Instead, aim for 3 to 4 discrete meals per day, each containing 30-40 grams of high-quality protein. This pattern has been shown to produce a stronger and more consistent anabolic response compared to the same total protein eaten unevenly. Frontiersn.org. Movement resensitizes the muscle. The good news is that anabolic resistance is reversible. Even a single session of resistance exercise, squats, push-ups, resistance bands, dramatically enhances your muscle sensitivity to amino acids for the next 24 hours. Think of it like turning the volume knob back up. Exercise primes the muscle to absorb nutrients and rebuild tissue. That's why pairing resistance training plus protein is exponentially more effective than either alone. A simple daily framework. Here's a practical structure to beat anabolic resistance. Train your major muscle groups 3 times per week, body weight or weights. Consume a protein-rich meal, 30-40 gram high-quality protein within 2 hours after training. Space meals 4-5 hours apart, avoiding constant grazing. Prioritize sleep and stress control since cortisol suppresses mTOR activity. If fasting, break the fast with a leucine-rich meal to maximize anabolic signaling. With this approach, you're speaking the biochemical language your muscles understand again. If this explanation is clarifying how muscle really works, not from hype but from physiology, then consider subscribing. I post science-based actionable content every day to help you optimize metabolism and longevity naturally. When most people think of building muscle, they think protein. But here's the truth, not all protein is created equal. And this single misunderstanding may be the reason millions of people lose muscle even while eating high-protein diets. You can eat plenty of protein, but if it doesn't contain the right amino acids, especially leucine, your body won't activate the growth machinery inside your muscle. And let's break this down. The real muscle switch, mTOR and leucine. Inside every muscle cell is a control tower called mTOR, mechanistic target of rapamycin. Think of mTOR as the ignition switch for muscle protein synthesis, MPS. When leucine, one of the branched chain amino acids, BCAAs, enters the bloodstream after a meal, it acts like the key that turns that ignition on. Without enough leucine, the key doesn't fit, and the muscle stays in idle mode. Here's what research consistently shows. A dose of 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine is required to robustly activate mTOR and maximize MPS, collagen, or bone broth. They contain roughly 0.3 grams of leucine per serving, a fraction of what's needed. Frontiers in Nutrition. In contrast, whey protein or eggs contain 2.53 grams of leucine per 25-30 grams of protein, almost the perfect ratio for triggering growth. So while bone broth is comforting and can support skin and joint repair due to its glycine content, metabolically it does almost nothing for muscle growth or metabolic resilience. The amino acid hierarchy. Let me explain this with a whiteboard analogy. Imagine your muscle as a construction site. To build new tissue, you need workers, amino acids, energy, ATP, and a foreman, mTOR, to coordinate the job. If leucine is the foreman, collagen is the guy who shows up with a hammer, but no blueprint. The site has tools, but no orders to start building. That's why bone broth and collagen powders don't build muscle. They supply raw material, but no signal. The signal comes from leucine, the foods that build muscle. Now let's get practical. Here are foods rich in leucine and balanced essential amino acids. Whey protein isolate concentrate, the most efficient source. 25G gives 3G leucine. Eggs. Two large eggs deliver 1.2 GOs leucine, combined with whites to reach 3G. Meat and poultry, 100 GRAs, 3.50 chicken, beef or fish, provides 2.5 GRA leucine. Tempeh or tofu, just now 10 GRs, still solid, but you'll need larger portions. Dairy, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, rich in casein and whey, excellent for overnight repair. For plant-based eaters, you can optimize your amino acid ratio by combining sources, for example, pea protein with rice protein to reach the leucine threshold. Why collagen and bone broth still have a place? Now, I'm not here to demonize bone broth. It can support connective tissue, joints, and gut lining. Glycine and proline, its main amino acids, help balance methionine and may lower inflammation. But you have to understand its lane. Collagen is structural support, not muscle stimulus. It's the scaffolding, not the spark. So use bone broth as a gut-soothing supplement, but not as your main protein source. If you're using it post-workout, add a scoop of whey, isolate, or drink it alongside eggs or meat. That's how you balance the equation. Metabolic implication. Here's why this matters beyond muscle. When you fail to trigger MPS, your basal metabolic rate drops. Lower muscle mass means reduced glucose disposal and higher insulin levels. Over time, this fuels fat gain, fatigue, and metabolic inflexibility. By consistently hitting your leucine threshold per meal, you restore muscle tone, improve insulin sensitivity, and reignite your metabolic furnace. A 2023 study in Nutrients found that older adults who consumed 30 grams of high leucine protein per meal gained significantly more lean mass and improved glucose control compared to those eating lower quality proteins, even when total daily protein was the same. Nutrients. This means quality and distribution trump quantity alone. A simple daily template. Here's how to apply this tomorrow. Breakfast, 3 eggs, 3 egg whites, 4 veggies, 3.5G protein, 3G leucine. Lunch, 4 Oz chicken or salmon, paw, 1 cup quinoa. 40 dinner, 6 Oz beef or tofu greens, 40G protein, 3G leucine. Optional evening, Greek yogurt or whey shake before bed, casein for overnight repair. That's roughly 120 gm total protein with 3 to 4 leucine triggers throughout the day, the perfect rhythm for muscle maintenance and growth. If this is helping you see through the bone broth muscle myth, hit that subscribe button. I post content like this every day, translating complex metabolic science into simple steps you can use. Most people think muscle growth depends only on how much protein they eat. But here's what's really going on inside your body. Muscle protein synthesis, MPS, doesn't run 24 hours a day. It happens in bursts. Think of your muscle as an engine that can be turned on or off. Each time you eat a meal with enough high-quality protein, especially leucine, that engine revs up, runs for about 3 hours, then shuts off until the next ignition. If you want to build or preserve muscle, your goal is to create multiple strong spikes of MPS throughout the day. The myth of the single protein feast. Let me give you a common mistake. If someone eats a tiny breakfast, maybe coffee and fruit, a light lunch, then a massive dinner with 80 grams of protein, thinking, well, I'm getting my total for the day. But physiologically, that doesn't work. Research from the University of Texas showed that when subjects consumed the same 90 grams of protein, either evenly, 30 range at each meal, or unevenly, 10 fall, 15, 65 dri, only the even distribution group maximized MPS 3 times that day. The big dinner group triggered it once. Why? Because MPS hits a ceiling. Once mTOR is fully activated, extra protein just oxidizes or turns into glucose. It doesn't double your muscle growth. So it's not just how much you eat, it's when and how you distribute it that determines how much your body actually uses. The 3-meal rule, here's a simple framework. Autogen 3 anabolic events per day. That's breakfast, lunch, and dinner, each delivering 30-40 gram of high-quality protein with at least 2.53 gram leucine. 4 to 5 hour spacing. You need time for mTOR to shut off between meals. Constant grazing keeps insulin elevated and blocks the reset that lets MPS fire again. Fasting. Sleep as recovery. During deep sleep, your body shifts to growth hormone-mediated repair. That's why a slow-digesting protein like casein from Greek yogurt or cottage cheese before bed can enhance overnight muscle maintenance. This rhythm spike, rest, overnight repair, creates a 24-hour anabolic cycle that your body can sustain naturally. How fasting fits in. Now you might ask, what about fasting? Doesn't that break this cycle? Not necessarily. Fasting, when used strategically, actually sensitizes your muscle to amino acids. When you fast, your insulin drops, AMPK rises, and old damaged proteins are recycled via autophagy. Then when you refeed, especially with leucine-rich protein, the anabolic response is stronger. So if you practice intermittent fasting, break your fast with a leucine-rich meal to maximize that post-fast spike. It's like recharging the system before rebuilding. The key is not to stay in the fasted state too long without refeeding properly. Extended fasting without protein can accelerate muscle loss if not balanced with refeed windows. Cortisol, insulin, and timing. Timing isn't just about food. It's also about hormones. In the morning, cortisol is naturally higher. That's fine. It helps you wake up. But skipping protein entirely at breakfast leaves cortisol unopposed, promoting muscle breakdown. A high-protein breakfast stabilizes cortisol and primes metabolism. At night, insulin sensitivity declines. So it's better to front-load most of your carbs earlier in the day, but still include protein at dinner for tissue repair. Remember, the goal isn't perfection, it's rhythm. Teach your metabolism when to build and when to rest. The 3-3. Here's an easy protocol you can apply starting tomorrow. 3 meals per day. 3 hours of synthesis after each meal. 12 hours overnight fast. That gives you 3 strong anabolic pulses and 1 long recovery window daily. The perfect balance for longevity and lean mass retention. Sample day. Morning. The 7 a.m., 3 eggs, pose, 3 egg whites, spinach. Midday. 12 p.m., 4 ounce salmon, koi, quinoa, greens. Evening. 6 p.m., 5 ounce chicken or tofu vegetables. 50 jar protein, 3 jar leucine. Optional bedtime. 9 p.m. Greek yogurt, casein, for overnight repair. It's not a bodybuilder diet. That's a metabolic optimization diet for anyone over 30 who wants to age strong. If this framework is making things click, how timing, not just quantity, determines growth. Consider subscribing. I post new videos daily translating the science of metabolism into real-world strategies. Next, we'll go deeper into section 5, where we uncover how your metabolic environment, insulin, inflammation, liver health, and cortisol either supercharges or sabotages your muscle building efforts. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Building muscle isn't just about protein and exercise. It's about the environment those signals enter. You can eat the perfect diet, but if your hormones, liver, or inflammation are out of balance, your body will simply not allow muscle protein synthesis to thrive. Muscle doesn't grow in a toxic, stressed, or insulin-resistant environment. Let's break this down, step by step. Insulin, the double-edged sword. Insulin is an anabolic hormone, meaning it helps build tissue, but its role is misunderstood. At physiological levels, insulin supports amino acid transport into muscle and suppresses muscle breakdown. At chronically elevated levels, it does the opposite. It locks you in fat storage mode and blunts your ability to burn energy efficiently. So, insulin isn't bad. It's about context and timing. You want insulin spikes after protein rich meals or resistance exercise when your muscle cells are primed to absorb nutrients. You don't want insulin high all day from constant grazing or excess refined carbs. When insulin is chronically elevated, the mTOR pathway becomes dysregulated and your body enters a state of metabolic inflexibility, unable to efficiently switch between burning fat and glucose. Eat indiscrete meals, control carbohydrates, especially refined, and pair carbs with protein or fiber. This lowers baseline insulin while preserving its anabolic benefits. 2. Inflammation, the silent muscle blocker. Inflammation is like background noise that drowns out the anabolic signal. When inflammatory cytokines such as TNF alpha or IL-6 are elevated, they block mTOR activation and amino acid transport and accelerate muscle protein breakdown. Nature reviews endocrinology. The source: chronic stress, processed foods, poor sleep, gut dysbiosis, and visceral fat. Reducing inflammation resensitizes your muscle to growth. Simple tools include omega-3 fatty acids, EPA, pi, DHA from fish or algae, polyphenols, turmeric, green tea, berries, fasting or time-restricted eating to lower oxidative stress, gut repair, probiotics, fiber, fermented foods. If you don't control inflammation, even perfect protein timing won't work. 3. The liver, the metabolic gatekeeper. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Your liver is like an airport customs officer. Everything you eat passes through it before it reaches the bloodstream. If that officer is overwhelmed, toxic, or sluggish, your metabolic traffic jam. A fatty or inflamed liver, an FLD, reduces amino acid metabolism, increases systemic inflammation, and impairs insulin clearance. Studies show that individuals with fatty liver have up to a 40% lower muscle protein synthesis response after meals. Journal of Cachexia, Sarcopenia, and Muscle. Fix your liver, and you fix your metabolism. How? Practice gentle fasting or time-restricted eating, 12-16 hours overnight. Lower fructose and alcohol intake. Increase cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, kale, to support phase 2 detoxification. Add choline-rich foods, eggs, salmon, liver, to help clear hepatic fat. A clean liver is the foundation for an anabolic metabolism. 4. Cortisol, the catabolic saboteur. Cortisol, your stress hormone, is catabolic by design. It breaks tissue down for quick energy. Chronically elevated cortisol does 3 things. Suppresses mTOR signaling, increases muscle protein breakdown, raises blood sugar and insulin levels. This means no matter how perfect your diet is, chronic stress can literally dissolve your muscle tissue. How to lower it? Prioritize sleep. 7. Avoid late night eating, keeps cortisol high. Incorporate relaxation practices, walking, breathing, sunlight exposure. Don't overtrain. Balance resistance workouts with active recovery. Remember, the body builds muscle during rest, not during stress. 5. The synergy of metabolic balance. Now, picture all 4 of these levers: insulin, inflammation, liver health, cortisol, on a whiteboard as dials. When they're aligned, your metabolic environment glows green. Insulin sensitivity improves, inflammation cools, liver detox pathways open, and cortisol drops. That's when mTOR fires efficiently, muscle protein synthesis accelerates, and your energy and metabolism feel effortless. But when those dials are red, high insulin, chronic stress, fatty liver, inflammation, no amount of bone broth or protein powder will save you. The soil must be healthy for the seed to grow. 6. The reset protocol. Here's a simple way to start optimizing your metabolic environment today. 12-hour overnight fast. Finish dinner by 7 p.m., breakfast at 7 a.m. High protein breakfast to blunt cortisol. Daily movement, resistance training plus walks after meals. Cut sugar, refined carbs, alcohol, Sleep by 10 p.m. to align with melatonin and growth hormone release. This is not complicated, it's physiology. When your hormones and organs work with you, building muscle becomes easy again. If this section connected the dots for you, that true strength starts in your metabolism, not your muscles, consider subscribing. I post science-backed strategies daily to help you master your energy, weight, and longevity naturally. We've covered the science, the hormones, and the timing. Now let's put it all together into a clear, doable framework, a daily muscle building protocol you can follow without obsessing over calories or supplements. Because here's what's really going on inside your body. Muscle growth is the expression of metabolic balance. When you eat the right foods, train the right way, and live in alignment with your circadian rhythm, your body becomes naturally anabolic, strong, lean, and metabolically flexible. Step 1, morning metabolic reset. Goal, lower cortisol, stabilize blood sugar, and trigger your first anabolic pulse. Protocol, hydrate first, electrolytes, pause water. Move for 5-10 minutes, brisk walk, light resistance, or stretching. Movement drops cortisol and opens your glucose sponges. Eat within 60-90 minutes, 3 eggs, 2 egg whites, or a whey protein shake, 30-40 g of protein, 3g leucine. Add healthy fats, avocado, olive oil, and fiber, spinach, chia seeds. Optional, black coffee or green tea for fat oxidation support. Why it matters: morning protein blunts cortisol's catabolic effect, improves mental clarity, and sets your metabolism into a fed but flexible state. Step 2, midday, the growth window. Goal, train and refuel to resensitize muscles to nutrients. Workout. Resistance training, at least 3x per week. Focus on compound moves, squats, deadlifts, push-ups, rows. Aim for 45-60 minutes, enough to challenge your muscles, not exhaust them. If you're fasting, train near the end of your fast to take advantage of the post-workout insulin sensitivity. Post-workout meal within 2 hours for salmon or chicken, palm quinoa, or sweet potato. Total 40-45 g protein. Include some carbs to replenish glycogen and support recovery. Why it matters: exercise primes your muscle receptors. It makes them more responsive to amino acids and insulin. This is where muscle repair and growth truly begin. Step 3, evening, the recovery phase. Goals: support liver detox, control insulin, and prepare for hormonal repair. Dinner example: 5 O's, lean beef, tofu or white fish, raw vegetables, olive oil or avocado for fat. Light carbs if you trained intensely that day. Key tip: avoid eating 2-3 hours before bed. Late night eating elevates insulin and suppresses growth hormone, your main overnight repair hormone. Optional bedtime snack: Greek yogurt or cottage cheese. Casein protein for slow release. Why it matters: during deep sleep, your body shifts into growth hormone mediated repair. Casein protein gives your muscles a slow, steady drip of amino acids to prevent overnight breakdown. Step 4, the supplement stack. Optional but effective. Most muscle loss prevention can be done with food and training. But if you want to opt whey protein isolate, fast, high leucine source post-workout, creatine monohydrate 3-5 GGN improves strength and muscle volume, especially in older adults. Vitamin D3 PAK2 supports testosterone, immune function, and bone strength. Magnesium glycinate reduces cortisol and improves sleep quality. Omega-3s EPA Pi DHA, anti-inflammatory support for muscle recovery. Always think of supplements as enhancers, not substitutes. Step 5, the weekly rhythm. Your muscles grow in recovery, not just training. Build, rest strategically. Weekly layout example: Manu Wed Fry, resistance training, 2 Thew, walking, yoga, or mobility work. Sasen, rest or active recreation. During off days, maintain high protein meals to keep the anabolic signal consistent. Step 6, lifestyle synergy. The overlooked muscle builders are sleep, light, and rhythm. Sleep 7-9 hours. Growth hormone and testosterone peak in deep sleep. Get sunlight within 1 hour of waking. Synchronizes your circadian rhythm and lowers cortisol. Reduce screen light at night, protects melatonin and recovery. Manage stress intentionally. Breathing, prayer, nature, these are as anabolic as any meal. And remember, the environment inside your body reflects the environment around you. The takeaway, forget bone broth as your muscle solution. Focus on high leucine proteins, resistance training, balanced insulin, a healthy liver, and restorative sleep. That's the formula that kills sarcopenia and keeps your metabolism young, naturally, sustainably, and for life. If this protocol feels practical and empowering, hit that subscribe button. I post content like this every day to help you build energy, strength, and longevity without medication. Let's bring this full circle. We started with a myth that bone broth is the ultimate food for muscle and anti-aging. It's not that bone broth is bad, it's soothing. It provides collagen, but it's not enough to prevent sarcopenia or rebuild muscle tissue. Because muscle isn't built from collagen, it's built from essential amino acids, especially leucine. It's built from metabolic balance, insulin sensitivity, healthy liver function, low inflammation, and a calm nervous system. And it's maintained by one thing above all, consistent signal, the combination of mechanical tension from movement and nutrient signaling from protein. That's what keeps the body young. Here's what's really going on inside you. Your muscles aren't just for movement, they're your largest endocrine organ. They release myokines that lower inflammation, improve brain function, and enhance insulin sensitivity. Every rep you perform, every protein-rich meal you eat, sends a message to your cells. Stay young, stay strong. When you neglect your muscle, your metabolism slows, your blood sugar rises, and your energy declines. But when you rebuild it, even later in life, you reignite your internal furnace. So let's recap the key physiological levers: protein quality and leucine threshold. Aim for at least 30-40 grams of high-quality protein per meal. Prioritize whey eggs, fish, and lean meats. Train your muscles regularly. Resistance exercise activates mTOR, your body's growth switch. Support your metabolism. Balance insulin by spacing meals. Cut refined carbs and keep your liver healthy with clean nutrition. Control inflammation and cortisol. Sleep deeply, manage stress, and include omega-3s and antioxidants daily. Respect recovery. Growth happens when you rest. That's when the repair signals peak. Each of these is simple on its own, but together they create a biological environment where muscle thrives and aging slows. Let me explain it with a simple analogy. Your body is like a garden. Protein is the seed, exercise is the sunlight, hormones are the soil, and recovery is the rain. Bone broth, that's the mulch. It looks good, but it doesn't grow the garden by itself. The real growth happens when all elements work together, consistently, patiently, intelligently. So here's my challenge to you. Starting today, pick one action from this video. Maybe it's hitting your protein target, lifting weights 3 times a week, or cutting out late night snacking. Track how your body responds over the next 30 days, not just in your muscles, but in your energy, focus, and sleep. You'll feel the shift, because when muscle wakes up, everything in your body starts working better.
If this brought you value, give it a like and subscribe to join a community of people optimizing their health naturally through physiology, not pharmaceuticals.
Remember, you don't lose muscle because you age. You age because you lose muscle. Let's reverse that together.